Welcome to episode 32 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we rewind the clock to go over the history of lacrosse. Happy holidays, Karson!
Woo! I'm so excited. I love this time of year.
This episode will be coming out 2 days before Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for this time of year?
Oh, goodness. I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful for the life that I have, for my family, my friends, lacrosse extras. I'm just thankful. I think that my biggest thing is I'm just thankful that I've been able to work hard in my life and have reap the benefits of it, because some people work really hard and never get to see their outcome. So I think I'm just thankful that my life has ended up the way that it has so far. What are you thankful for?
Very cool. I'm also thankful for my life. I started a new job recently, so that's going good. I'm thankful for that.
Yay.
I'm moving to a cheaper place in less than a month, so I'm going to be thankful for cheaper rent. That's going to be nice.
Where are you right now? Where are you based out of?
I am in Orem, Utah.
Oh, you're okay. I didn't know if you were still in Utah or not.
Yeah, so I'm still in Utah, and then I'm just moving out to another smaller town in Utah.
Oh, okay. So you're staying in Utah.
Yeah, Utah is great. We have a lot of the mountains have the snow peaks right now, so they're super nice to look at. They haven't gotten completely covered yet. We haven't gotten a lot of snow, but I mean, December is coming. Winter started late this year, so the snow is coming sooner than later. That's for sure. So that'll be nice. I'll send you some pictures.
It literally hasn't been under 40 degrees here yet.
I think so nice. Next this upcoming week, the high for the whole week is 43. I think is the high. That's the warmest it's gonna be. So maybe this is the week for snow. Also, one more other thing, I am thankful for my favorite podcast co-host and our podcast.
Woohoo!
Awesome. So with it being Thanksgiving week, we are going over the history of lacrosse, and we are going to start off with the year 1100. I am curious, in the year 1100, was Pangea still a thing or no? Probably not, but it was closer to a thing than we are now, I'm guessing.
I have absolutely no. I'm the worst. No, I don't think so. That was 300 to 200 million years ago.
Pangea?
Yeah.
Oh, and for those of you who do not know, Pangea is when all the continents were connected. Okay.
And apparently it was a lot longer ago than 1100.
So what, 1100 was 900 years ago? That's it? That's not a lot.
No, not that long.
I hope my math is not off on that, but
it's over 900, right? No. You're right. 900 years.
Okay, so it'd be 923 years.
Yeah, sure. I can't do that math that fast.
Well, sure. 1100. That's not too long ago. Where I get confused with history is when it gets into the BC stuff. I'm I have no clue when that was. I had no idea. So
no, I guess it's zero. It'd be zero, and then you'd work backward. I don't know. I don't pay enough attention. Yeah. So I'm in 2023.
So the reason we mentioned the year 1100 is because, according to History.com, lacrosse, which is America's oldest team sport, okay, not oldest sport, oldest team sport. So before football, before baseball, okay, before basketball, there was lacrosse. Okay, and the sport dates back to the year 1100, when it was played by the Iroquois people, the Haudenosaunee, and what is now New York and areas of Canada bordering the state. So that's why everyone's good up in New York, because they should be good. That's where it started. Okay, so
yeah, I think I loved preparing for this episode because I think it's just fascinating the evolution that it's had. And also I just can't imagine playing lacrosse the way that they did. They played it with 100 to over 1,000 people on what's not a field, was what it could have stretched for miles and miles of gameplay. I think is just really, really cool. it's just so different. It's somehow still lacrosse, but with this entirely different like twist on it. And the games could last for days. Like it wasn't even just one kind of thing.
And you thought you were in shape.
I know. Can you imagine how much these people had to run? They're probably running like marathons every single day. And like their sticks were like, we think our lacrosse sticks now, like think about how advanced that they are. Like they were playing with wooden sticks and like deer hide wrapped balls. Like I just think that that's so cool to see where it came from and where it started.
Yeah,
And barefoot. They were playing barefoot.
Well, luckily back then it was like, I would assume it's pretty much all grass. Like that was before concrete and stuff. I would think maybe not. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, but there's got to be like rocks in the ground.
That is true. That is true.
Oh,
I have no clue what deer hide is. But those sound very interesting. I'm sure in some museum somewhere.
it's like the skin of a deer. Like the like thick skin of a deer. They wrapped like I don't know what they wrapped up in it, but that's what like deer hide.
I wonder if it was bouncy.
Like, I'm sure not. Probably not.
Well, I'm sure in a museum somewhere there is a deer hide wrapped lacrosse ball. Somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
And also, the wooden sticks I think is very cool. So I don't know. I don't even know if I've ever seen a wooden stick with a women's lacrosse player like actually playing. But I know like I've seen some wooden sticks on the men's side, like in actual competitive situations. And I just think the wooden sticks are so cool. They are just so sick.
They are. They're really cool. They'd be so hard to play with, but they don't have any like the technology that helps you hold on to the ball. But hey.
Yeah. So they have the wooden sticks, and then I've also seen where they have just like the wooden shaft part, and they have the like one of the current heads on top of it. Those are pretty cool. I like those.
Those would be cool.
I need to invest in one of those whenever I'm not broke. I would love that. So, continuing on with lacrosse and the Native American culture, how it was intertwined. So, according to Joe Finn, an archivist at the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame and Museum, quote, it was played to prepare them for war and was also a social event where tribes would get together for trade and sport. It was sometimes used to settle disputes. Yo, man was talking to her man. All right, you're going to play lacrosse.
I just think I know that like I've heard like through the grapevine, I guess, that people used to like hide behind trees. I almost said tweez. Hide behind trees. And like when the person would be running by with the ball, like they'd just get decked. Like someone would just come out from behind the tree and like just flatten them. I don't know how like realistic that is, but that's like a story that I've heard is. So I guess that's how you get prepared for war. Like it was a gruesome it was like a hardened battle, I'm pretty sure, based on what I've heard.
I wonder how many people had like serious injuries because if you were playing, if the field was spanning miles and the games were lasting for days, I wonder how many Achilles were torn. I wonder how many ACLs. I wonder how many broken. Yeah. I wonder if anyone got paralyzed. Like it seems like it was pretty brutal. Okay.
Yeah, and like if you do tear an ACL, like. And you're out in the middle of a field, like who was coming and get you? You know,
everyone else is continuing on
down. Like you just got to keep playing. Like it's just for like this is for some serious like skin in the game. Like you just like go down with a broken ankle. You're like, well, I got to keep moving. I guess there's no trainer coming to get me. There's no like, there's nothing. That's so interesting. I think
that's when you would have to call a mom to come kiss the boo boo.
Yeah, you're like, somebody help me, please. Somebody help me.
Could you imagine? You're 20. You're like, oh, I'm in amazing shape, and then this 80-year-old man, you go down with an injury, and this 80-year-old man just hobbles by you, and he continues on, and he's like, what a wuss.
Right, because I saw somewhere that I think it was still on this like history page that they could have been ranging from like. They sometimes did like when it was like the healing game, they had like teens all the way up to like 80 years old playing. And I just think that's so funny because when I was a fifth year, I was like, man, I am so slow compared to these young kids. Like I am so slow. I can't run as fast. Like I'm just not as agile as I was when I was 18. Like I can't imagine these 80-year-olds out there. Like, yeah, see ya. I gotta go. I gotta go run 7 miles to get to the goal.
I mean, I don't think hoverboards were invented yet in the 1100s, but imagine if they had a hoverboard and they let the old people use the hoverboards as like a little advantage. That would be cool. But
That would be fair, and that would make
maybe in
it.
another life.
Yeah, yeah. Starting now. Another thing I thought was interesting was just to hear Neil Paulus, who was a former professional player for the Iroquois national team, kind of describe how they viewed it in more of like a spiritual way, as opposed to just like we think of lacrosse as a game, and a lot of us talk about it as a game, and it's like it has a lot of power behind it. When you lose, it's just a game, like whatever, it'll be fine, you'll get over it. And I do think it was really interesting, especially having played so recently and having had all those thoughts, to hear him describe it as a way that was like a lot deeper than that, and made it kind of into something more than just like a game. And he described it as part of their story and their creation and their identity. And so he said that Paula said that when he was playing, they viewed the game as a game like on here on Earth, and then also that there's a simultaneous game going on in their sky world, and that their ancestors were playing it along with them. So I just thought that was a really interesting like way to think about it, and I can see how it would bring a lot more meaning to the game if you were the Iroquois people, with that sort of like culture behind it. I thought it was just interesting to view lacrosse as something so far beyond a game and something that was like had a lot more power and presence and culture.
For sure. And just to go over that, like that one of their versions of, or I think that's what rematriation. I don't know how to say that. I'm butchering that. But it says Powell's points to one rematriation origin version in which a young woman and a chief living in the sky world must marry to save their universe from destruction. But her attention is drawn to a lacrosse player who later dives through a hole torn in the sky world to save her, and they mate before she lands on Earth. So basically,
Cool.
if you're not dating, interested, or married to a lacrosse player, then you're not doing it right. Okay.
Oh God. Don't say that.
Oh yeah, Karson's boyfriend is a soccer player, so.
Thank God. Okay.
Oh man. Okay. Moving on to the Europeans and their influence on lacrosse. So obviously, we all know the Europeans, and blooded Europeans, okay, that we all descended, well, not all, a lot of us descended from, because they came over to the States. They, on their voyages, on their, old ships, and they had a big influence on the Americas. Okay, so in the 1600s in Quebec, French missionaries first witnessed Native Americans playing the game. And it was given the name lacrosse because the missionaries thought the sticks resembled the bishop's cross carried during the religious ceremonies. I did not know that. That is pretty cool.
I didn't either. I did think that was cool too. I mean, I don't know. I guess I always thought like a cross, like because a cross is like a stick. I thought so. I just thought like lacrosse, it's just a stick. I don't know. That's how I got it. But that is a way cooler story than I had in my head.
Well, I'm curious when the name stickball came about, because I know when I was in high school, you never heard stickball? You never heard lacrosse referred to as stickball? Well, it's dumb. That's what. Well, probably because in Maryland people take it a little more seriously than in Georgia. But like when I was in high school, some people would refer to it as stickball just to like try and get a rise out of me. I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And even my one of my grandparents, she was asking me about it one day, and she called the stick a racket. I'm just like, that is not what it's called, okay?
A racket. Yeah, no, we weren't playing stickball in Maryland. We were playing lacrosse. Yeah, so I feel like getting back to our history lesson here. I think that it's kind of cool. I feel like you can't really compare the two sports. Like I think that they're kind of different and kind of similar. Like the Iroquois people have lacrosse the way that they played it, where it was like almost ceremonious, and it was like this ritual and this culture and had like a lot of deep meaning to them. And then the Europeans kind of just made it into like a more mainstream thing that could be played by more people and could be like profitable eventually, and something that could just kind of turn into mainstream populations and mainstream medias. And so they did that basically by making a real list of rules. Because
Oh yeah, give him who wrote the first rule book. This is great.
yeah. Because so in 1859 it became the national sport of Canada. And in 1867, so I guess how many years is that later?
Hey,
Eight.
Karson, come on now.
8 years later, George Beers, who was a Montreal dentist, wrote the sport's first rule book. I don't know how. I'd love to hear the background on that. Like, how did we get a dentist involved? I don't know how. Like, it was his son playing, or like, was he just like, that's cool, I'll write the rules? Like, or was he like the only one that could write? Like, I don't understand. I don't know how we got to be a dentist, but I do think that's kind of funny.
Hey, the Canadians are very smart people. Okay.
Oh, well, I have no doubt that they're very smart people, but I don't like there had to be someone more involved in the lacrosse world than a dentist to write it. I don't know. I'm dying to know that story because that's interesting to me.
Maybe he was the Katie Hogue of Canada.
Meaning, oh, that he was, yeah, maybe.
But she's in dentist school.
Yeah, maybe he was just the dentist. He was the dentist who played lacrosse before and was like, yeah, this is cool, I'll do this.
So he took a team of Canadian players to play England in front of Queen Victoria. How in the world did we get a lacrosse game in front of a queen? I have no idea. That just blows my mind. Okay, I have no idea how that happened.
I know, me either. That's this whole like section of the history books I would love to know more about. Like, how did George Beers be like, yep, here we go, Queen Victoria? Like, did he just call her up? Like, yeah, Queen Victoria, I got something for you here. You got to see this. Like, this is so cool.
I could just imagine him introducing himself to the queen. My name is Mr. Beers. Okay.
Right. And I am a dentist. Hello.
Bow down. We have a game for you to behold.
Right.
So yeah, Karson, what did the queen write in her diary after she witnessed this game?
She wrote, the game, very pretty to watch. It is played with a ball, and there is much running.
Astute observations from the queen.
Right. Only, like, I was expecting, like, poetry level of, like, observations. But really, it's just definitions. Yep, it is with a ball, and there is running involved. I was like, can we get that part in writing? There is much running.
I don't know where they saw this, but not that we would be able to get it, but we should have this diary portion, this page torn out of her diary and put in a museum somewhere. That would be sick.
Be with the deer rawhide ball.
Yeah, side by side. Maybe the diary is made of rawhide as well, the covers.
Probably, honestly. Maybe.
I don't know I'm not real big into the whole lineage of the queens and the kings and stuff over in England, but I wonder who was the last queen that passed away?
Elizabeth?
I wonder if there was just like one in between her and Queen Victoria. Because 1867 is not that long ago.
Wait, is Queen Elizabeth still alive? No, she's dead. She's dead. Yeah, she's the one that just died.
She's the one that had all the corgis. Very cool.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know who else.
I mean, my parents are boomers. They were around near the 1860s, so can't be that long ago.
Yeah, I don't have the lineage. You're right, because when was that? 18 something. So yeah, you're right. It can't be that.
Yeah, can't be that long ago.
You're right.
Okay, so we've kind of jumped ahead to this part. About kids. So Karson mentioned ceremonial medicine games. We kind of jumped ahead to where, who is this? Who gave this quote again? I'm not sure who gave this quote, but this is in the history.com article. It says, players will show up with no pads, no equipment, and just your wooden stick. Teams are determined by clan, house, or age, and you're going to have 7-year-old kids running around with 80-year-old men on the same field. That's pretty cool.
It says the ages are whoever can walk. Like, it's not even age specific, just whoever can walk and get on out there.
Imagine little kid just getting beamed by like a 40-year-old ripping a shot.
Right, like just a 7-year-old, like da da da. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know. I'm sure they had it much more together than the 7-year-olds of today. Like, I'm sure they were more highly trained 7-year-olds than our 7-year-olds.
Probably.
Our iPad kids running around today. Different
Yeah.
generation.
Our kids are running around today on their iPhones, you know, not a care in the world is what's going on around. So yeah, so those are some pretty cool facts about lacrosse and its origin. I think it's interesting because obviously we don't know all the facts because it was such a long time ago and the record keeping wasn't as good and like it is now, but it is pretty cool to know certain facts. Okay, so if you want to read this, go to history.com. The story is called The Native American Origins of Lacrosse. Okay. And this was just updated recently. I'm not sure what was updated in it, but it was updated recently.
I also think one more thing about it is that it did it was Palace that was saying this, the Iroquois national team member, that I think just gave those quotes that you just said. And he was also talking about how the spirit of the sport has like healed people. And the Iroquois people believe that it's medicine that speaks to the spirit and the soul. And I think like whether you're part of the Iroquois people or not, I think that that's a cool thing to hold on to. And I love the sport so much. And I feel like a lot of our listeners love the sport so much that it has healed people in a variety of ways, like whether that's coming back from an injury or like your certain mental states or just like a variety of ways. I think that this game has really been like supportive to a lot of people during a lot of hard times. So whether you actually believe it's medicinal or not, like it is it's just cool to have that kind of lacrosse has that richer history to it in terms of like lacrosse as medicine, because I think that can be expanded to even like modern day cultures.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely interesting because so he's saying that they view it as medicine, whereas like if you ask a lot of people nowadays that aren't that don't have the Native American background and aren't familiar with it, they'll tell you that sports are very healing, but they don't describe it as being medicinal. And so it's interesting. Like we have like the views are the same, they're just described differently, which is very cool.
Yeah, so, you're right. I think that's because we've like pharma, like our big pharma now in America is just so ridiculously out of control that medicine is like Advil, ibuprofen, blah, blah, blah. There's just like it's, you know what I mean? And healing is more of like a holistic approach. I feel like that's how we differentiate.
I mean, that's how they do it in different parts of the world. So
yeah, listen, holistic medicine, they're onto something. I'm telling you.
Don't take advice on us with your medical history, but if you're ever sick, go the holistic route. Okay.
Use both. There's both methods. Both methods can be effective together.
Awesome. So now we will get into the women's history. So another Canadian, John Flannery, founded the U.S. National Amateur Lacrosse Association in 1879. He established lacrosse in the United States when he was transferred to Brooklyn, I'm assuming Brooklyn, New York, by his employer. We don't know if he was also a dentist, but he did bring lacrosse to the States. So that's pretty cool. Although I am a little confused because in both the history.com article and on World Lacrosse, it says the first women's lacrosse game took place in Scotland in 1890. So I don't know. So if he brought it to Brooklyn, New York in 1879, or founded the U.S. National Amateur Lacrosse Association, they had to have games, right? Or maybe it's just like just pass and catch. I don't know.
Well, the first women's game, the U.S. National Amateur Lacrosse Association could be men.
Oh, I'm tripping. Okay.
So it was women was in Scotland in 1890. Yeah.
This is why we need big brain to balance out little brain. Okay.
We need the two brains. But you skipped over the best fun fact of all of them.
Yes, I'm sorry. Rewind. So lacrosse was dubbed the fastest game on 2 feet in 1921. Well, that is kind of jumping it, but it was dubbed the fastest game on 2 feet by a Baltimore Sun sports writer. And by then, they didn't have a rubber ball. We had buried the deer hide balls. We stopped killing deer for balls. Okay.
Do we think that it's still the fastest game on 2 feet? I do. What is your opinion? I mean, besides like sprint, like besides like track and field, where their job is to run a 100-meter dash.
Yeah, I mean, if as far as like football, as far as all the major sports, yes, because and especially baseball. Oh, don't even get me started on that one. So yeah, I think it's definitely the fastest game on 2 feet among the major sports. Probably track is faster, but with these new rule changes, we might go down to the slowest game on 2 feet. Who knows? So
True. Very true. And I do think like there's argument for a lot of sports because lacrosse, like there are those like kind of like stalling periods on either side of the ball, and then you're moving really fast in between. But then if you're like two really good teams are moving the ball really fast, so then that's also still a really fast portion of the game. Like it's a hard distinction, but I like to say that it still is just because I played it.
I mean, if you think of football, they have what 30 to 40 seconds. I don't know, that it might be 40 seconds in between each play.
I don't think football's in the running. I would say basketball and soccer could be in the running only
Soccer
because, well, I guess like the people aren't moving that fast, but the ball's moving really fast. I don't know. It's hard to just like the ball's moving faster, but the people aren't moving as fast.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hate on soccer, but there's so much walking around. I feel like, which is whenever I watch the games.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It depends on what you're talking about. That's what I think. Like basketball is really fast. Basketball is moving faster, but you're not moving as fast for as long periods of time.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I was just asking.
We're not going to give credit to basketball. Okay, the greatest sport in the world is lacrosse.
No, I'm on board with it being the fastest game on 2 feet. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just playing devil's advocate that there could be other options that other people could argue.
Well, we will not entertain those options. Okay, now moving on to women's lacrosse. The first women's lacrosse game took place in Scotland in 1890. And there are we did a story on this on laxextras.com a few years ago. And we have some of the photos that we got from World Lacrosse, and we had obviously their permission to post them. So you can either go to laxextras.com to read about the origins of women's lacrosse and see some really cool photos from the 1890s and the early 1900s of lacrosse players, or you can go to World Lacrosse, and they're have you seen those photos, Karson?
Mm-mm.
They're good. They're very good.
I will have to go look. I have not seen them. Anyway, then the first American women's team, which I did read that like a couple of them like kind of tried to start going, but nothing really caught on until 1926 at a Baltimore secondary school was the first American women's team, which go Maryland. No wonder it's one of the strongest states.
There's Baltimore again.
No wonder it's one of the strongest states in lacrosse.
Behind Georgia and New York, yeah.
Yeah, because behind who? Georgia and New York?
Oh gosh, I'm so funny.
I heard New York and I was like, I guess I can agree with that. But then I didn't even recognize Georgia as the name of a state that could be associated with lacrosse. So I didn't even cross my mind to be like, I was like, okay,
it was such a bad joke. Georgia's not even on that level that you didn't even process it.
I didn't. I didn't process that you could be possibly saying Georgia because I was like, there's no way. I was like, sure, I'll give him New York. That's like where I just jumped to. But yeah, so Baltimore, 1926, which is only 100 years ago. Less than 100 years ago, the first women's
97 to be exact.
Yeah,
pretty good.
That's kind of cool. Mm-hmm.
1926. That was sometime after World War I.
Listen, you're not talking to a history buff here. I got no clue.
You need to pay attention in school, Karson.
I'm so far removed from history classes at this point. I haven't taken a history class since maybe junior year of high school.
You didn't have to take a history class in college?
Nope.
I don't know what Drexel be doing, but I thought you had to take at least one, because at least where I went to school, that was a core class. You had to take at least one history.
Well, I tested out. I tested out of AP Gov. Like I took AP Gov and I got something 4 or 5 on that test. So I didn't. So I might have tested out of it. I'm not sure.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, if you are listening to this and you want to learn about history, don't go to Drexel. Okay.
Don't go to Karson. Drexel, I'm sure, has great history programs. I just wasn't in them.
Well, I was just curious because so World War II was like 1938 to mid 1940s, I think. So I think World War One was in like the 1900s.
1914 to 1918.
Okay, so this was after World War One. I was curious because it would have.
This is why you don't need history, because you can just Google it. World War II was 1939 to 1941, so it was smack dab in the middle.
1930. World War II was only 3 years.
That's what it says. Oh, 1939. This says 1939 to 1945.
Thank you. I know my history. Okay. But yeah, I was just curious because I feel like it would have made more sense if it started during World War One when all the men were off in another country fighting the war. Because that's kind of how I think that's kind of how softball started, was because all the baseball players were in the war, and so they wanted sports back home. So I wonder if so even if it didn't start during World War One, I wonder if World War One served as a catalyst for lacrosse to come in the coming years, for women's lacrosse, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I was just looking at, I was trying to think of something that was related, but I don't know. Anyway, should we move to the first NCAA championship, or do you want to talk about that or no?
Yes, before we get to that, one last thing from this history.com article. So Finn, the historian, says the development of mass-produced, lighter and easier to handle plastic and metal sticks came in the late 1960s and early 1970s, which made the game faster and increased scoring. Which, if you've ever seen one of these old sticks, like I think my dad played in the 80s, I want to say, and those sticks were ugly. Okay, so I don't even know I do want to know what they looked like in the 60s and 70s, but they cool.
I wonder if they were still wooden. Like, were they still playing with wooden sticks?
It says there were plastic and metal sticks being produced. I'm sure there were still some wooden sticks though, because it's like whenever something new comes out, everyone doesn't just go to it right away. So
yeah, no, I meant like before they were mass producing things. Do you think they were playing with wooden still?
That's a good question.
I think so. I feel like they were, but I'm not sure.
Actually, I do think you're correct, because I think STX was founded in 1903. I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Oh, I was like, interesting. That's crazy. I feel like they'd advertise that more.
When was STX Lacrosse founded? Let's see. 1970. So that's right along when the new stick started coming about. So.
Yeah, there you go. So they just jumped on board with that.
And Maverick Lacrosse was 2005. Okay, have you ever seen the old Gary Gate STX ad where he pronounces it as sticks instead of STX? It's trivia, because you're like, is it actually supposed to be pronounced as sticks and not STX? It's really funny.
Yeah, interesting.
I saw it on Instagram somewhere. It was pretty
How
good.
long ago was it?
Oh, it was old. Like he was young when he was still he was young.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it looks like it might have been like an early 2000s thing, maybe.
Oh,
late 90s. I don't know. Awesome.
Weird.
Okay, so we are going along to the first NCAA championship game. Let's see. Let me pull this up.
So I was curious whether you were looking at this, because there was in 1982 there was an NCAA championship, but it was also shared with the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. They also had a championship in 1982. In 1983, NCAA was the sole provider for women's lacrosse, the sole operator for women's lacrosse.
Okay, well, I did not know that, but that makes sense because UMass won in 1982, and the runner-up was TCNJ. Do you know what that stands for?
Oh my God, I literally just looked at who won it, but I can't remember. Was it like Tuscan something?
No, that's Tusculum is a university, but this TCNJ is the College of New Jersey, and they're D2 or D3. They're pretty good, but that makes sense because if you look at the rest of these, like if you look at the rest from 1983 all the way to the current, all the teams that competed and won or lost are like D1 teams today, versus the College of New Jersey is not. So since maybe that's why, because it was like a cross collaboration between leagues.
There were like 2 different people playing in each like
Yeah.
brackets or something. Yeah.
And it was a 9-6 game, so the College of New Jersey had a chance.
That would have been crazy.
But Pamela Hickson and the UMass led team by Pamela Hickson got it done. My mom's name is Pamela, so I got to shout out Pamela Hickson. Okay. 1982 head coach of the UMass national champions women's lacrosse.
Wow. So I looked at the next one after that, after the NCAA had become the sole owners basically of the women's lacrosse collegiate sport, and it was 1983, which I thought this was hysterical. It was Delaware versus Temple 10-7 at Franklin Field, like at Penn's Field. I was like, wow, talk about Philly representation in that championship. Like crazy. And 10-7 is so low scoring. I was just like that, like, wow, how times have changed. But then I like after that, I was like, all Maryland. It's like, there they are.
Well, not exactly. 1984 Temple won. Then you have New Hampshire. That ain't gonna happen again. Then it was Maryland, then Penn State, then Temple again, then Penn State, then Harvard, Virginia, and then in 1992 Maryland won again. So Maryland won in 1986 and 1982.
Yeah,
so
but they were in some that they lost too. They were in championships they lost too.
Yeah, they lost in 84, 85, 90, 91.
So they were there a lot. Their presence, they had a presence there.
Yeah, they weren't winning, no.
Well, they were winning sometimes. I think about the longevity. I just think think about the longevity of that program that they started in like 1984, making their first appearance, and like they're still in the contention for like Final Four games and things now. Like the longevity of that program is pretty insane. Like North Carolina didn't win their first one until 2013.
That is pretty crazy.
And Maryland, like Maryland won their first one in 1986, you said.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Maryland won their first one in 1986. I don't think North Carolina's team started though until like 99 or 2000, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Because it hasn't been around nearly as long. Because they've only had one coach in the history of their program.
1994.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's why I think you got to give Maryland props for just the fact that they're still around. Like they're still cruising in this championship contention.
I think it's kind of one of those things, though. It's like Duke in basketball or Kansas in basketball. Like they've been good for as long as people can remember. So they always get recruits. So I feel like that's one of the things. I mean, I don't know. So I feel like not
and they're in like a hotbed.
Yeah, I feel like obviously it's very impressive, but I feel like it's like for me personally, it's more impressive what like Kelly Monty-Hiller has done at Northwestern, because I mean in the Midwest when that was started and they were winning right away. Like and then you have like Boston College, who was around but never a lacrosse school, and then now they're a lacrosse school. So it's, I don't know. Maryland's super impressive. I'm not trying to sound like a hater. I just feel like
well, you're saying schools that because they were present, but like Maryland had to do the same thing, but in 1986. Like they still, you know what I mean? Like they started without a team. They had to start without a team too, and then become a team. So I think like, yes, your point stands, but your point also stands 40 years ago when they were starting as a program. They still had to start as a program.
But like North Carolina, for example, these teams, you said 1994?
Yeah.
So everyone else had at least a 12-year head start. And then Northwestern, everyone had like a 20-year head start. So
yeah, but so now it took them this long to win, but like Maryland won in 12 years too. Like they were founded in 1974. It took them 12 years to do a national championship. Like you're just talking about more recent Marylands is all you're doing, which I'm not saying is not impressive, but you are. Like that's exactly what's happened. They founded later. It took them years. They won. Maryland was founded earlier. It took them years. They won. Like it's the same thing. It just happened in 1980.
False. I completely listen. And you think in 2023 there are less? Let's see. How do I want to word this? Okay, you think in 1982 there were as many good lacrosse teams, quality lacrosse teams, as there are in 2023?
I think comparatively. Like,
Oh gosh.
obviously, if you took that Maryland team now and you put them in the present, like, I think you're having a hard time separating. Like, if you took that Maryland team now and from the past and put them into your world now, obviously they wouldn't perform the same. But Maryland didn't have like the same quality of players to pull from. They didn't have the same people with experience to pull from as everybody else did around them. So, like, yes, but now the quality of people playing women's lacrosse has expanded so drastically that, like, there are a lot of teams that are good. Yes, 100% correct. But the proportion wise from Maryland in the past to the amount of players now that, like, say Boston College has to pull from is the same. It's just
Do you
40
believe
years.
what you're saying right now?
I am 100% sure I'm right on this, so I won't stop.
Karson, listen. Yes, I totally agree with what you're saying, that if you pulled Maryland from 1986 and put them on the field today, they would not do as well compared
But
to
think
these
about all
teams.
the advances have made. Like, the game wasn't even the same. So it's hard.
Yes.
You can't even really compare.
What I'm saying is there was, so while we have, I think there's 126, 129, somewhere around there, Division I women's lacrosse teams, I want to say. That might be a little high. But there's a bunch of D1 women's lacrosse teams right now.
Right.
There was not that many back in the day.
Correct. I agree with you. There's also now 100,000 women's lacrosse players, and back then there were probably 50.
Yeah. So okay. So we agree on that.
They're exactly the same.
So what I'm saying is it's harder to win now because you have to beat, say you have to beat 10 good teams now versus back then you had to beat 3 good teams.
But you also have a million good people to pull in where you didn't have it before. Like, say 50 over 100, and now it was like 50 over 100. Now it's like 500 over 1,000. Like, it's the same ratio. It's just different. It's just larger numbers. I understand what you're saying. Like, 3 teams, whatever. That's fine. I get that. But, like, there's also the game has changed so drastically that, like, it doesn't matter.
You're blowing my mind on this one, Karson.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy. I can't believe that.
me and Karson are not on the same page on this one. But anyways.
No, because I'm on math side, and math clearly is not.
I'm on logic side.
Right. We can ask. Let's ask our viewers. If you listen to this, let us know what you think of which of these makes more sense. I'm dying to know.
Okay, so is the poll question going to be, was it harder to win in 1986 or is it harder to win in 2023? Is that the question?
No, who's right? That's the question. And the answer is Karson.
Oh gosh. Okay, anyways, moving on to the U.S. national team.
Wait, actually, I had another fun fact that we didn't get to. The most outstanding player in the first ever NCAA championship was Karen MS Borby, who is currently teaching and still coaching lacrosse at Swarthmore College and was a recipient of the 2019 Taunton Legends Award. And she's been coaching at Swarthmore for 30 seasons. She's never been anywhere else. She's only coached at Swarthmore, which I thought was really cool.
That is cool. What would also be cool is if we reached out to her and asked her who was right, and she says David.
She would not. Are you kidding me? She's on my side. She won the 1983 NCAA championship. You think she's going to tell you it's harder now?
It is harder now.
Okay, sure. I can't argue.
Okay, moving on to the U.S. women's national team. The United States Women's Lacrosse Association was established in 1931. And the first U.S. team was selected in 1933. In 1935, the U.S. sent a team to England for a tour. And the sport continued to grow over the decades, with several U.S. teams traveling to both England and Australia for exhibition tours. The tours often lasted for more than a month, and history was made in 1973, when the host Americans beat Great Britain for the first time. The 1975 team continued the momentum with a memorable tour, going a perfect 13-0 and beating Great Britain on their own soil. That's pretty cool. 13-0, that's hard to do.
That was cool. It didn't take us very long to get really good at it, did it? I just thought that was funny. 42 years.
I mean, when you have Dennis coaching the sport, it doesn't take long to get good.
Surprised mouth guards weren't initially, was immediately implemented.
You will not play on this team unless you wear a mouth protection device. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Let's see. So yep. So that was just from a little snippet from USA Lacrosse, and now to our final section on the rules. Karson, take it away.
Oh, I just thought this is really like really quick. Couple of things, but I just thought it was funny. Goggles weren't mandatory until 2012 too. Like this is kind of what my point is that like it's so hard because like we weren't even wearing goggles before 2002. Like the difference in this game now, like that there were not out of bounds until 2006. Like they did not have an out of bounds. Like they just went until the ref was like, yeah, that's too far. Come on back. Like I can't believe that literally like less than 20 years ago there weren't out of bounds in the game of lacrosse. Like that is just baffling. My people on my team's parents played without out of bounds, and then you throw it out of bounds, and you throw it, and the ref's like, yeah, that's too far. Whoever's closest to the ball, got it. So it wasn't even a turnover. It was just like, oh shoot, you messed up. Come on back. Like it's just so think about how much easier it would be to play behind X. Like you just throw it and be like, oh shoot, missed the pass. Like gotta go get it. I just think that's so crazy. But anyway, so that was like the biggest I thought rule change. That was like so drastic to me. And then the newer rules are honestly the one that I didn't really talk about the rules that are just implemented because those ones like we already talked about. But like the shot clock and free motion, defense like running to the crease, all of that stuff that has like really changed the game tremendously was 2017. Like it was my first year in college. I think it was my first year in college was the first time that those rules had been implemented. Like I was learning them as a freshman, which I just think is so crazy. Like those rules seem so like what lacrosse is as a sport now. Like I can't imagine having to play collegiate lacrosse with a shot clock or with a stalling clock. Like that would be literally impossible. I would want to die. So I just thought like that stuff that makes lacrosse is so different now, if as recently as 5-6 years ago.
That is, I completely agree with you on that one, Karson. Also, I think about the goggles. So I've seen photos from like the 80s and 90s, and like just players like they're running around, like the sticks are a little bulkier, and they're obviously not as well designed, and they don't have goggles on, and it's just I can see why they didn't have goggles back in the day because there was like no contact.
Yeah.
That's how the game started. And so now, like honestly, I feel like when I'm watching lacrosse now, especially at the national team level, because at the national team level you have the choice to wear or to not wear goggles, and so it always feels weird when there's players wearing goggles and there's players not wearing goggles. It just feels weird to me to see.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, question for you: do you think the goggles are really necessary, or?
I mean, I've appreciated them a lot of times in my life. Like the amount of times I've gotten hit in the face with a ball is probably like 5 or 6, and a couple of those would probably have been a broken nose. So I appreciate them. But like, I mean, obviously it's not like a thing that's continuously like having something, and I don't think it's like a concussion prevention thing. But I mean, I've definitely had a couple of things hit my face that could have been broken noses if I wasn't wearing my goggles. So, and they're so like easy to wear. Like you can't, once you wear them for a long enough time, then they don't really even like, I forget they were on my face. Like I'd walk into the locker room with them on because like I just forgot was wearing them. So I think that they're like definitely we don't ask you to wear much, you know, like it's not like they're asking you to wear all these pads and everything, and like helmets, thank God, aren't part of the men's game yet. So I feel like a goggles and a mouth guard are a pretty easy pieces of equipment to wear for your protection. So I was all like, I think that they saved me a couple of times for sure.
I think so. We talked about the evolution of the sticks. We did not talk about the evolution of the goggles. And oh man, those things used to be thick.
Oh God, yeah, they were horrible.
Like I'm sure even when you were younger, like they were like I've seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of when teams have their senior days and stuff, and they'll post like a then and now photo of their players. Like people who are seniors now, their goggles were super thick in the 2000s. It's so funny to see.
They were really, they had like big pieces of rubber all the way around our faces. That was like that. Now it kind of like comes up and around, but it was more just like this block of rubber that was on your face.
Yeah.
From before.
So, last thing for me, what do you think do you have any expectations on the evolution of rules going forward?
I think they'll have to walk back a couple of the things that they put in this year. I don't think those will last very long. After watching, like, they'll see how they'll play out for this year, and I think they'll have to walk some of those back. But other than that, like, I think it's kind of been, I mean, I don't know, I'm biased because I really enjoyed the rules the way they were when I played them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to kind of start to make it more like the professional game where there was like 2 points and stuff like that, just to make it like crazy. But I wouldn't have liked that as much. So I don't know. I hope not, but maybe.
Yeah, the 2-point won't bother me because there was a point in time in basketball where they didn't have the 3-point line, and watching basketball now, if there wasn't a 3-point line, it would just feel weird, I think.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have a problem with it. Would definitely take some getting used to, but I wouldn't have a problem with that. Do I think it's necessary? I don't really think it is because you can go on a run and come back without it. So I don't know, but
yeah, I worry about injury with the 2-point. Like, it's fine when you're in the professional or like whatever league because those are all like really, really the highest quality players, like the most. But if you have if you introduce that into a pool of people that aren't like the most qualified in the entire world and have introduced a 2-point shot, like, then you have people choosing to do it when it's not entirely appropriate, and it could get really dangerous, I think, would be my hesitation for it.
I did see Athletes Unlimited had an exhibition yesterday, and they were testing out some new rules. And I don't know what took them so long, but they finally, one of their experimental rules that they tested out was if you are a defender now, you have to be within a 6 length inside the arc. I'm like, what took you so long?
Oh, you mean like you're making it like the college game? Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. So I'll send you that post, but they had a post on that with like all the experimental rules and like the different scoring system and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm like, I don't know why you didn't have that to begin with, but
yeah, they'll get shooting. They'll start to implement like shooting space. They'll start to add things in that they were just trying to be different, and now they're not.
Yeah. So
That's
awesome.
funny.
Well, any final thoughts as we turned back the clock to the year 1100 today?
No, I do not. This was fun.
For sure. So that is a wrap on this Thanksgiving week episode in 2023 of The Player and the Journalist.